Hello Magic Makers, welcome to Storytime with Mombierella. This is a young adult fiction and may be inappropriate for some younger viewers. Evil Thing. A Tale of That DeVille Woman by Serena Valentino. Copyright Disney Enterprises Incorporated, 2020. Chapter 8. Part 2. Distinguish Yourself. I still had it in my mind that I would spend my days with Anita as my companion, traveling the world together, seeing everything we had ever read about in our most cherished books. And I had a notion to find that distant and magical land where my earrings had been found, by that ill-fated pirate. The one my father had told me about, the night he gave them to me. I was going to spring it on Anita the next time we saw each other. A grand pirate adventure, curses and heroes, and villains, just like the one of Princess Tulip's fairy tales. It would be just the two of us, no stuffy lords or meddlesome mothers. From that point on, I refused to go to any more balls or social engagements my mother tried to arrange. And I refused to wear any of my fabulous furs or feathers, or any of the other things my mother had heaped upon me for the purpose of snagging a husband. I couldn't stand to touch anything she had given me. She'd even forced me into gaudy diamonds that dripped from my ears. I hadn't worn my cherished jade earrings since Christmas. Poor Papa, he wouldn't approve of what Mother was trying to do. He wouldn't want to be married to some boring man with a boring name who spent his idle days hunting, flitting from place to place depending on the season, like a migrating bird. A man completely lacking in imagination. I'm sure he would want someone who loved my independent spirit, and someone who loved me for me, not just my money. My mother, frustrated that I refused to see any more of her suitors, went off on one of her trips and announced she wouldn't be back for some time. I was thrilled. I could have Anita stay with me. I called her the moment my mother left for her trip to Paris, or wherever it was she was off to. I was almost sure she wouldn't be returning home in time to celebrate my 18th birthday, and honestly, I was secretly hoping she wouldn't. Everything was as it should be. My solicitor, Sir Huntley, had sent over the paperwork that detailed my new allowance. Once I turned 18, I didn't need Mama anymore, and I found myself feeling much more at home without her there. I was the lady of the house while she was away. Before I knew it, the school term was over, and Anita was to return home, back to Belgrave Square, where she belonged, with me, and with her extended family, my servants. Anita had always been close to them, and since our holiday meal together, I had felt closer to them than ever before. Mrs. Bailey and Jackson had kept me sane throughout my mother's husband's hunting season, what with Jackson's commiserating looks and my sneaking down to the kitchen to talk with Mrs. Bailey about the awful bores my mother was throwing at me. But now, I would have my Anita back. I couldn't wait. The day had finally arrived. I stood in the entryway for what felt like an eternity waiting for Anita to arrive. I couldn't just sit in the morning room waiting for her. To be ushered in and announced by Jackson. She wasn't a mere guest. She was my family. My only family. Now that Papa was gone and Mama had all but given up on me. Then I finally heard the car pulling up out front. I didn't even let Jackson open the door entirely before I dashed over to give her a hug. "Oh, Anita, I'm so happy to see you." I threw my arms around her. She looked more radiant than ever. We wrapped our arms around each other, holding on tightly, before letting go. She had the most beautiful smile on her face. She was home. "Cruella, happy birthday," she said. I'd almost forgotten it was my birthday. I was too excited about her visit.
"Miss Anita,"
Jackson said,
"I'll have your things taken upstairs. I'm sure Mrs. Bailey's eager to say hello. If you'd like to go down and see her, I think she might have a little surprise for you."
He gave her a little wink. "Oh, yes," said Anita. "Come on, Cruella." She took my hand. "What are you up to?" I asked. "Why is Jackson ushering us downstairs?" Anita just laughed. "It's just as he said. I'm sure he realizes. I'm excited to see Mrs. Bailey. Come on." I remember holding Anita's small hand in mine as we walked down the stairs. It reminded me so much of walking down the stairs with Miss Prickett when I was a little girl. I almost felt giddy. There was an excitement in the air. It was almost entirely dark, but I could hear the giggling of the housemaids and Mrs. Bailey shushing them as I was taken from the kitchen to the servants' hall. The scent of chocolate filled the air. "What's going on? What's wrong with the lights?" I called out into the dark, and then, with a spark, they switched on. Happy birthday, Cruella! Everyone was there. Jean, Polly, and the footman, and Mrs. Bailey. Within moments, Jackson joined us. My family. They were all there. "Oh, Anita, did you arrange this?" She smiled and patted Mrs. Bailey on the arm. "Along with Mrs. Bailey, and of course Jackson. They did all the work." And they had gone all out. The room was beautifully decorated with black and white streamers and balloons. And sitting on the servants' hall table was the tallest, most elaborate decorated cake I had ever seen. "You've outdone yourself, Mrs. Bailey." It was a miniatured cake with altering dark chocolate and vanilla layers. "I'm so happy you're all here," I said. "Especially you, Anita," I added in a low voice only she could hear. "I have one more surprise for you, Cruella." Anita seemed very excited and a little nervous. "I hope you won't mind." A familiar figure came out from the kitchen. It was Miss Prickett, but she looked different. She wasn't dressed like a governess. She was in a lovely little traveling suit, with matching shoes and handbag, and her hair was softly falling around her face. Miss Prickett! I hadn't realized how much I'd truly missed her. "I'm so happy to see you, Miss Prickett. Can you ever forgive me?" She stopped me before I could continue. "Never mind all that now, Cruella. I understand. I was just happy when Anita wrote me to say you'd like to see me again." And I had. I had desperately wanted to see her again. But I'd feared she would reject me. I had told Anita about it in our mini letters. Told her how I had felt after Christmas. How I felt I had made a terrible mistake. How I wished I could have changed everything after that horrible row with my mother on Christmas Eve. I told her how miserable I was, trapped at home with Mother, without Anita or Miss Prickett to be my allies. And now Mother was gone, and I had my Anita and Miss Prickett back again. Life was good. It was as it should be. It was a wonderful evening of merrymaking, the most fun I'd had in months. This time I didn't care if my mother came home or not. I neither wished for her to be there to help celebrate, nor dreaded her return, ruining our pretty time. Not that she would sully herself downstairs with the likes of Anita or the staff. Mother had completely slipped my mind, until the bell rang, just like it had on Christmas Eve. This time my heart didn't sink. I was 18. Mother no longer controlled me, and she had never controlled my money. According to the missives I'd received from our solicitors, my allowance was to be raised. I was to have an income of my own, and more control over the finances in general. The capital and house would still be held in trust until I was of age. Whatever she said to me when I opened the door, however she scolded me, it couldn't hurt me now. But that bell would change my life more than I could ever have imagined. At the door was a gift from my father, arranged by him with his solicitor before his passing. A gift for my 18th birthday. I met Sir Huntley in the vestibule. He seemed surprised to find me coming from downstairs, but said nothing on the matter. He just smiled, his round little eyes turning into half-moons. Beside him, on the round table in the centre of the entryway, was a wicker basket. Something was wiggling under the red blanket within.
"Miss Cruella, your father asked that I give you this, along with the other provisions that were detailed in the missives I sent you last week. I trust you understand everything."
"Yes, Sir Huntley. But what is this?" I asked, looking at the basket.
"This, my dear, is Perdita, a gift from your father."
He smiled and took a puppy from the basket. She was the most adorable thing I'd ever laid eyes on. "Perdita!" I swooned. "A puppy. A black and white puppy. A Dalmatian puppy." She was beautiful. She had a vivid red bow tied around her neck, with a tag that had her name printed upon it. Perdita. But how? Why?
"Your father made arrangements in his will that you were to be gifted Perdita on your 18th birthday. He was very specific on the breed and name."
"Isn't Perdita a character in A Winter's Tale?" I asked, wondering if Papa had simply chosen the name because he knew I was fond of such stories, or if there was a deeper meaning.
"He said you would recognize the name. He also gave me a note to go along with his gift. He said you would understand."
Distinguish yourself. And I did understand. I understood it completely. It was the same message Mother had included with every gift she'd ever given to me. But it all started with the fur coat. the one that nearly overshadowed the mysterious jade earrings Papa had given me. He must have seen her note that night in my room. Distinguish yourself. Her meaning was quite different than his, of course. She wanted me to be more like her, to distinguish myself from everyone else, but Papa had always wanted me to be my own woman. He wanted me to distinguish myself from my mother. I felt this was a sign that I was doing the right thing by distancing myself from my mother. I felt like he would approve of the choices I had made since he died.
Your father always wanted to give you a puppy, Cruella. He was only sorry he had to wait until he was gone to do it,
said Sir Huntley.
He said it was something you always asked for, but Lady Deville resolutely forbade.
That was true. I'd cried myself to sleep many nights when I was a girl, wishing I could have a puppy, a Dalmatian puppy to be exact, and my papa remembered. I loved my father more than ever in that moment, and I loved Perdita. I had Anita and Miss Prickett home with me again, and for the first time I didn't need my mother. I felt like all was right in the world, and I couldn't have been more wrong.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this reading. If you haven't had a chance to, please take a second, like, subscribe, ring that notification bell, comment down below, share with a friend, and check out some of the other Villain series chapters and books as well. Join us next time, and remember, let it go and keep moving forward. Have a magical day. Bye.